What's up, everybody? It's your old pal, Sleaze Grinder from the pages of Classic Rock Magazine, as well as the Advanced Demonology Podcast, which you can find on archive.org, and the Heavy Leather Universe, which you can find everywhere. I'm here to talk to you about some rock and roll and some books. I read a book that reminded me of a book that also reminded me of a book that made me think of a band, so I wanted to tell you that as well. First of all, this is a band that I feel like there's a lot of buzz on right now, and I want to make sure that I get in on the ground floor. That's what I did with Castle Rat. I was there on the ground floor. So, I don't want to miss out on the next big thing. So I wanted to mention this. It's the new tape from, of course, Witchpiss from Simi Valley, California. This sounds like it looks. Interestingly, not a metal band. It's a synth punk band, which, strangely enough, is also known as egg punk. There's a reason for it, but I don't. It's very obscure. This one is called Hot Bog. Just came out, and I love it. If you can imagine a synth punk band imagining what a heavy metal record sounds like without ever hearing heavy metal, that's what this tape is, and it's fantastic. And also, I want you to take a look at the beautiful work the boys in Witchpiss did. Look at that. It's like see-through and it's got sparkles in it. Amazing. Anyway, I think fake metal synth punk has been needed and not provided. And now finally somebody is delivering the goods for us, and it is Witchpiss. And you are going to see kids on the street with Witchpiss t-shirts and Witchpiss back patches, and it's going to be a glorious Witchpiss summer. So I want you to get in on it quick. Go to Bandcamp. Get in on the Witchpiss mania before it takes us over. And then the posers get into it. And then you tell them, no, I was there in the beginning. And they go, sure you were. It's only one way to prove it, and that's to get into it now. All right. I do a lot of reading. I'm not bragging, but I want to talk about some books here. But first, I want to talk about the suburbs. I grew up in Cambridge, Massachusetts, which is, of course, the city, and we didn't know much about the suburbs, but the suburbs seemed like this dark, dangerous, creepy, sinister place. And really, the only time that I remember as a teenager going to the suburbs, this is a whole nother story that I'm not going to get into now. But I was briefly in a band when I was in high school with Seth Putnam of Anal Cunt infamy. This was before AC. And we played a gig in his living room, and I got chased out. The singer got chased out. And that was really the only time that we were in the suburbs that I remember. And, it was scary. So that's always been the vibe of the suburbs to me in the 80s anyway. You also have to throw in the sort of the teenage nihilism of the 80s because of the nuclear fear and all that kind of stuff, which I think was all brilliantly encapsulated in the 1987 film River's Edge. River's Edge starring Daniel Roebuck, Keanu Reeves, Dennis Hopper, Crispin Glover. It was based on a true story, and it was about this guy, Daniel Roebuck, in the film, who strangles his girlfriend. I think it was Ione Skye. Strangles his girlfriend, leaves her in the woods. The next day, he asks his friends if they want to go and see, her dead body. So they go out and see it, and then the rest of the film is basically the who's going to crack and tell the cops, and who's going to stay loyal. Crispin Glover is like the local heavy metal enthusiast who tries to keep everybody together and not rat out on their friend. And he's driving around in a Volkswagen Bug, blasting Slayer and Hallows Eve. And they all hang out at Dennis Harper's house. He's like a Vietnam vet, he burnt out Vietnam vet. He has this like shack out in the woods. And, he's, smoking weed and drinking with all the teenagers. And he's in love with his blow up doll. It's a whole scene. But I feel like it encapsulated the teenage wasteland really well. And I read a book yesterday called Brutes. It's right here. It's by Diz Tate. And when I say I read it yesterday, I did, in fact, read it in one sitting. And it is about a group of preteen girls, 8th grade, 13-year-old girls, who live in this Arizona suburb that is, the whole thing has an edge of surrealism to it, too. But basically, it seems like they're living in this apartment complex that is still under construction, or maybe the construction stopped and it's only been half constructed. But anyway, one of the girls goes missing, and the other girls go looking for her, and they encounter the darkness of the suburbs. Really good book, but made me think of another book that I think is also a really great read. To me, a mandatory read. This is a book that is quite popular, but also has some criticisms. It is this one. It's Devil House by John Daniel. If this guy's name sounds familiar, it's because he's the Mountain Goats guy. I remember it was about 20 years ago. I was driving a delivery van. Worst job I ever had, because it was like the year before GPS, so I was lost all the time. But anyway, I used to listen to college radio while I was driving around, and I heard the song, and it was like an anti-love song, and it was like it was acoustic, and the chorus went, "I hope you die, I hope we both die," and I was like, "This song is incredible. What the hell is this song?" And so I pulled over, and it's like the first time since a teenager where I had to pull over and call the radio station and ask them what it was, and they were like, "Oh yeah, it's No Children by Mountain Goats." It's like, I love it. I'm in. And that was the last Mountain Goat song I ever heard. But I think they delivered what I needed from them. You know what I mean? I got the Mountain Goats experience with that song. So I highly recommend that song at the very least. But anyway, he's written 3 books so far, and all of them are fucking great books. Devil House is about a sort of abandoned, just like it's like an abandoned storefront that these teenagers hang out in, and people think that there's satanic rituals and stuff going on in there, and we find out if there is or there isn't. And it's a brilliantly written book. I think it totally encapsulates what it's like to be an aimless teenager on the outskirts of society. But a lot of people, if people are criticizing this book, it's because they say that nothing happens. But I think that is exactly the right move, because when you're a teenager, nothing happens. You're just fucking hanging out, waiting for something to happen. You want something to happen, and nothing ever does. And I think this book encapsulates that perfectly. And I love it. It's called Devil House. Now, this book reminded me of another book that I read that I wanted to tell you about. And it's this one, Teenage Wasteland, Suburbia's Dead End Kids by Donna Gaines. Donna Gaines was a music journalist. She worked for Village Voice, Spin, Rolling Stone, etc., etc. Very popular music journalist at the time. And she basically went undercover as a teenager. This was in the 80s. She was still in her 20s, so she kind of fit in. At the time, there was this rash of suicide clusters happening in various suburbs. This one, what I remember, is in New Jersey, but there were all these teenagers who were making suicide pacts together, and then offering themselves. So she went to one of the towns where there was a suicide cluster and interviewed the kids that obviously didn't kill themselves, but knew the kids that did, and just hung out with them, and it's a lot of just like hang out in front of the 7-Eleven wearing a Slayer shirt, smoking cigarettes, and being 16 years old and thinking there's no future for me. There's no future. What am I going to do? There's no future. And just amazingly, like, just brutal, doomy, bleak outlook on life that was very real. It's very real in the 80s to feel that way, to feel like there was no future, to feel like the world was going to end, And she did a great job. She wrote another book called The Misfits Manifesto, which or her memoir, also really good. Anyway, and while I was thinking about those books and that vibe, I wanted to capture the vibe musically. And so I was listening to, I don't have a copy of one of their records with me, but I was listening to Sweden's Salem's Pot, which is an awesomely great doom metal band that perfectly encapsulates the banal evil of the teenage wasteland. So check all that out and be glad that you're not still a teenager. And if you are a teenager right now, be glad you weren't one 45 years ago.